The land was filled with asbestos bricks. We know that, this is fact, from the Edgar coal-fired plant. A drill came in, half the size of this room, went down at least 5 feet, maybe 6. All of those asbestos bricks being there, okay? Now the top, you know, I'm not gonna argue the first 18 inches was probably what we call oil brick, because at that point, they had converted to oil, right? So I'm not gonna argue that point at all. What I'm arguing is that they've gone down this far. The soil that was brought up, say, by the drill, got pushed into the piles. This is gonna be my assumption, because I don't know where the heck else it would have gone. So now, not just because you're in an acidic soil situation, as we discussed, but because the drill is gonna break stuff up, you've now liberated, it's not that brick I'm holding, you've now liberated asbestos, potentially. I'm making these statements. And so, now I'm trying to remember where I was going to go. So, they've taken the soil. I'm gonna make another statement, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
This is a drill.
They've done no testing for asbestos.
I don't believe they have.
Okay, so that's a correct statement.
For asbestos in
the
the
soil.
soil?
In the soil.
Okay.
Okay.
We were at a meeting with you, I believe, and you had said, someone asked a question about some data, and your answer, I believe it was you, said that we just take the material, we take the data that the project proponent gives us, and we just work with that. That doesn't show any research into the actual data. That just shows you taking what they said. And now we do the research, and we find out they're wrong, but you know, we come back to you and you say, well, this is the number we got.
We reviewed the data.
Yeah.
We asked for any analyticals, and we did consult with toxicologists at DEP. We did-
In line with that, let me ask you too, we had another meeting with the PIMSHA representative too.
With what?
PIMSHA, Pipeline Safety.
Oh,
No
okay.
acronyms. Pipeline
Yeah,
Hazardous Materials
yeah, it does go
Safety
both ways.
Yeah, okay, no acronyms.
Anyways, someone had a question about the data too, and he came back and he said, well, I can't answer that because we haven't got the whole project. Do you have the whole project in front of you when you make that decision to give them a permit?
There's not a permit.
The final project.
You mean for the cleanup?
There isn't a permit associated with the cleanup under the Massachusetts contingency plan. You're talking about the permit for the compressor. Today we're talking about the release abatement measure plan.
I understand that, but there's still the DEP. Does the DEP look at the whole project?
I can tell you that if there is a permit in front of us, our job is to ensure that we look at all the data. But again, today we have a lot of ground that we need to cover germane to the ongoing activities right now, which is the cleanup.
We do too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's why we're here.
But, you know, I think that, but to like separate it out, it's like when we have a waterways permit, we have wetlands permit, we have an air quality permit, and these are like permitting. And and correct me if I'm wrong, I look at your division as, you're not really permitting,
Correct.
you're overseeing
That's correct.
the contamination, which I see this as sort of a different.
Do you know how many tons of material have approximately been removed so far? That's one of those things where we were trying to guess what's going on, and you know, so 10,000 tons is the amount of material that is planned to be disposed of or moved off site, right? 10,000 tons, I think.
I think it's
I
50.
think it was yard.
Well, I think
Five
there's
to 10 off-site, 15 total excavation. Yeah. So they're gonna try to reuse some of the material on-site.
The volume or weight?
Well, I thought it was 15,000
Total.
cubic yards.
Cubic, yeah.
Cubic
And
yards,
and
right.
that's equal to 10,000 tons, I think. Is that right?
I
So,
know that
Well,
yeah,
it varies
okay,
from soil
I
to
just
soil.
want to know, like,
Yeah.
you say what's the mound that was there, the big mound
Yep.
is only that kind of top 18
Top
inches or so,
material.
right? And so how much does that amount to out of the total amount, whether it's 10,000 tons or 15,000 cubic yards? We're just trying to understand,
Yep.
like,
What's next?
yeah, what's coming? Because here's the other confusing thing. We've seen rebar and concrete being poured in areas, and it makes us think like, are they done? Because, or are they just using concrete to fill the wells, you know,
They're
or?
putting in footings.
Okay, so that, what's not making sense to me is, it didn't seem like what we saw was 10,000 tons of material.
No.
So it seems like there's a lot more to be dug up and moved, and you,
So they have a couple of projects down the road that is gonna involve more excavation.
but why are they putting footings down and all that? It's somewhere else,
Yeah,
or?
yes.
You gotta move the gas from the M&R up the hill to the projected compressor
So,
building.
and they need to connect it to utilities, that will involve more digging. And so they're not done digging it.
Okay, so with that volume of material that's going to be moved, how deep will they be going?
Let's see.
I think that's what we were trying to get at also,
Yeah,
because I think it connects with your question number
Yes,
2.
right.
So, I understand.
My understanding is the piping is gonna be above grade, the high-pressure gas line. The footings are supporting a wall
Yep.
or that type of thing, so they're not gonna go down, they're actually bringing the lines up. They're gonna be above grade, protected by some sort of wall for storm surge. And, but again, one of the frustrations is we don't get accurate site plans, or we keep getting
Okay.
changing site plans.
Okay.
So trying to figure out
Oh,
what they're
boy,
doing
we'd love
is.
to see that.
so do we know how deep they're going?
So I'm hearing probably, like these footings, these rectangular
Well, for the
excavations that we saw.
big 10,000, I don't know how many,
So they need to do utility connection between
Right.
the proposed facility and the existing infrastructure that they have, and that's gonna involve a fair amount of, you know, a long trench, probably going
Right.
maybe 10 feet into the material. You know, I think a lot of it depends on how much they bring in and things like that.
would
So
that
that's gonna be a fair amount of soil.
would that make up the bulk of this 10,000 tons?
And then so that's going between the existing infrastructure and the one that they're constructing. And then down near the entrance to the park area, they're running utilities underground there. So that's gonna be some of the soil
Yep.
as well.
And the building itself, the compressor building, will be 5 stories tall and at the same level right now as the MWRA pathway.
It is.
So, I mean,
So that's why here they were
Right.
able to bring in that clean material to put
Right.
on top of the contaminated
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Because they know they're
Right.
raising,
Right,
you know, the grade to facilitate the
Okay.
construction of the.
right.
All right. Well, I'm glad, it sounds like there's a commitment by DEP to sample bricks that are at depth for asbestos. Do I have that right?
So, DEP is not performing the response actions, but we are going to enter into that discussion because I do agree. We do agree that first I think we want to investigate the below 18 inches,
Yeah.
you know, what's going on here. I think, you know, we want to follow up on that. And then that's going to take us to the next,
Yeah.
to your point,
We can
which
get
is
at that next.
whatever's there, if you have bricks, we want to know what's in there.
Right. And that's already happened, as we've seen
So
on the
that's-
video.
Do you
So,
agree, or am I
Nope.
hearing
Okay.
differently? So,
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Who gets to
Yeah.
decide?
Right.
we can have a conversation. So we can have a conversation.
Do you, would you
And-
agree?
and we are still in they are moving into comprehensive response action. mode.
Would you agree that if asbestos were being moved onto public roadways that weren't being listed as such today? Okay, if, just like the stuff that was dug with the backhoe that we've seen, and it wasn't marked as such, would you agree that that constitutes a public health emergency? How much urgency would you put on such a event, if it were to happen? Would you call that a matter of urgency?
That is a really broad word, so what I do know that the work in front of us necessitates the necessary investigation. And this is happening real life now, so we need to capture the moment. So
Okay.
whether it's an emergency or not an emergency is something that needs to be done. The question is being raised, that question needs to be answered.
All right, so one of the things that's really a problem here is that it sounded like, from Mr. Martin, that you sounded confident that what was being removed to date in the dump trucks are safe material, because it's that upper material. But I think you said it's also mixed with some other stuff. So, you know, it's some mixture. And that there is arsenic.
The ash material that has the
And,
arsenic.
and so we have other video and pictures that show trucks that are not only unmarked, but marked with like things that say all green hydro seed that are literally billowing dust out of their back end. And so we can agree or disagree as to whether that material is harmless dust or it contains arsenic or asbestos, maybe not asbestos, I don't know. But how can we verify, not just take someone's word for that, you know, a layer of gravel constitutes a decontamination pad, which I think is what Enbridge is trying to argue. You know, how can we verify that? Because Ms. Garcia Serrano, you said that, you know, basically you're constrained to go by these principles, but that, you know, it's show me the data. Okay, so when trucks leave with material coming off of them, we need to see the data. We need some kind of verification whether that is stopping the trucks right before they're leaving the site and doing a swab sample and holding that data as evidence for testing, or a webcam that is recording the procedures, because we see very haphazard. Sometimes a sidewall of a tire will be wiped down, but almost every other time there's nothing like that happening. There doesn't appear to be any other decontamination procedures happening. How can we have any confidence that the material we visually see coming off of these trucks doesn't contain these very dangerous materials? And so swab samples, a webcam, recording, and what would it take to get a DEP on-site observer? And I'm glad that you've been out there on occasion, but given the pace of work, there needs to be direct observation from DEP of what's going on, yes. And so I think, I might come back, but for now, that's good, yeah.
Okay.